So let's get on with the show. I'd like to welcome Jonno Southam from AWS and Guy Podjarny, the founder of Snyk, to kick off the show. So let's get them on. Here we go. Welcome both.
Good morning. Thanks, Alex. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Well, obviously, Jonno, we had you at the main event, SaaStock City, yesterday. And Guy, we've got your CEO speaking, I think, this morning at SaaStock with Alex Kayal, and you spoke at SaaStock Remote sort of recently. But thanks both for taking your time to speak to the audience at Ascent. I'll leave it with you, Jonno, and yeah, looking forward to the conversation. I'll be back in around sort of 20 minutes or so.
Thank you, Alex. Delighted to be here, and thank you for being the first of this new concept that you've created, Ascent, which I'm really pleased to be involved with. So, my name's Jonno Southam. I'm part of the global startup business development team at AWS, and I'm joined today by a very successful serial founder who's definitely in the top 100 in my view, and he's going to be here. Is here now to talk to us a bit about his journey as a founder, as well as his current company Snyk, and how that's disrupting the open source developer security space. So Guy Podjarny is the Snyk founder, president, and chairman of the board. You have a super interesting background. Do you want to give the audience a little bit of insight into your journey as a founder and sort of the Blaze story a little bit, and obviously talk about why you are not sitting on a beach now and you decided to start Snyk and kind of get that going and the success that you're having.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for kind of having me here and the kind words kind of coming in. Yeah, I guess my journey. So I'm an Israeli. Went through the cyber parts of the Israeli army, and then joined a startup in the application security space long before it was prevalent. We had to explain to people, SQL injections and the likes were important, and they should care. And that startup got acquired by a Canadian startup, and I moved to Canada more as an opportunity-taking aspect of just career opportunity to move away. I moved to Ottawa, Canada for a year, ended up staying for 10. Ottawa, this was Sanctum, got acquired by Watchfire, got acquired by IBM. So I wasn't the founder there, but I did learn a lot about those acquisitions. Those companies, Sanctum and Watchfire, weren't massive companies, sort of close enough to the activity, and also had the opportunity to participate in some acquisitions as part of IBM and kind of learn a little bit the other side of the fence. And I left IBM really driven by the desire to found a company. So it was more the decision about that versus an idea in purpose. And I looked at the competencies and what did I know to do, and I felt like I know how to really build application analysis and solutions that in the security space have evolved maybe more than elsewhere. I found myself in the performance world and building basically a company called Blaze that made websites faster, brought performance optimization to the application layer. And that company founded that, with a great co-founder, Mike Wider, and that company was acquired by Akamai. And Akamai was a great journey. So Akamai was, clearly doing its own sort of, big performance benefits to the world, and they sort of brought in this application layer. And I had an opportunity to be the CTO for the web performance business, which is roughly half of Akamai at the time. And that was a very interesting journey to sort of be a part of be the CTO of a large, sort of at the time, $700 million a year business. And I learned a ton, including indeed, dealing with startups. Also started doing some angel investing and learn more. Adrian Collier, who's from Excel and is an awesome individual, called it learning in parallel. Anyways, don't want to belabor this point too much, but Akamai was a very educational journey. I moved to London with Akamai for advance the tech over here, and then I got the itch to do another startup. I felt for me it's all about personal growth, and I also felt like in the world of performance I was a part of the DevOps journey, and I learned a lot about this sort of transformation happening because of it, and that there was an opportunity to bring that learning into the world of application security, which led me to found Snyk. 5 and a bit years ago. So,
and it's been like such an incredible journey, right? I mean, just most recently in the last 12, 14 months or so, you've raised 3 incredible rounds of funding, in real tough times, right? So I think the numbers are something like $420 million in 3 rounds in the last 14 months from September to now was this sort of official thing. What did investors get excited about regarding the Snyk proposition, right? What are the things that that lit up their eyes as you went through that journey?
Sure. So I think, generally speaking, I think investors, growth investors specifically, are looking for companies that have the potential to be the clear kind of dominant category winner in big markets that are growing and sort of forming. And so for Snyk, what we really touch 2 of those. So Snyk, what we do is what we call developer first security, around, to an extent, bringing security into the DevOps journey, right? Our thesis was the way we build software changes because of DevOps, and it's really moving to this continuous processes by autonomous teams, and security is left behind. Security hasn't come along for this journey. It's still an external team. It's still not built in. Development teams need to kind of be empowered and be equipped with the right solutions to actually drive it and embed security into that sort of fast-paced development they're doing. And security needs to basically undergo a transformation similar to what the ops industry has before, and become these DevOps teams, become enablers for the developers to do so successfully. And so that was the sort of the big trend. And our thesis was that we can build a developer tooling company that tackles security, and that if we did that, if we build a tool that is really focuses on that developer first, we will break through, we'll get developers to embrace security, and that is the most important thing, that everything else will sort of come out of that. And that indeed is sort of the core conviction that we've done, that was hard to do and unusual in the market, and got us to this. We have 1.5 million developers using the product, and delighted by it, which was, I think, a new thing, a unique thing, to have developers actually like, not to say love, a security solution. And so that sort of core principle is more than any one product. We built an open source security product. We can talk about the product evolution, but really I think that core philosophy permeated throughout our go-to-market, throughout the company culture, and of course it came through in the product itself. And it was hard to achieve, and it required the early investors to maintain, and us to maintain the conviction to the most important thing is not about getting a security person to sign a check, but rather getting a developers to pick up the product. And that drove it. And so I think that's the core thing, is really this is a transformation in the market, and we're one of the few, if not the only one, that really embraced not just the technology thing. We tackled open source security, fixing vulnerabilities in your open source components, but I don't think that's the only thing that attracted developers. You need to have a big market, but rather more the approach and the love from the community into something that is really transformational, I think, in the security market. And I'll add, that was our core, and I think that's the primary thing we do differently. We've also evolved to build a perspective around the change in this market around cloud, and clearly sort of AWS being the proponent of that, but really when you think broadly about cloud and sort of the set of technologies, what cloud has done is it reshaped, it moved a lot of components that used to be IT into the application. So if you think about applications pre-cloud, there's a big central IT stack, and that IT stack has server management in it, has networks, has storage, has like central IT applications like databases and the likes. And I think the cloud, what it's done is it made all of those be as a service. They made them be just sort of services available that are not centrally managed by some organization, but rather are driven and pulled in and managed by developers as a natural part of that app. So that cloud trend has also driven substantial importance into getting developers to embrace security, and it required a solution that sees this. I think what we've done well is that we saw this trend happening, and when we defined our scope, we talk about cloud native application security. We talk about tackling the breadth of like the developer in a cloud native world, all of these decisions they do, many of which were IT related, and through this lens, build our portfolio, build our platform of solutions around cloud native application security, from open source to containers to others. So if I go back, it's a little bit of a long-winded answer, but if I go back to like the investor growth, I think they saw the DevOps and cloud market transitions really transform a market, and they've seen Snyk to be really well positioned to conquer that market through the developer love and sort of the developer focused products that we've built.
Interesting. So I know, kind of going back to my early days of AWS back in 2012, but we spent a lot of time talking to customers about what cloud was, right? So what is cloud, and trying to talking through the public cloud and the pay as you go, and the scale when you want and scale up and down, that kind of stuff. To what extent are you educating the market as a category leader in this space? To what extent are you still educating the market, or do people just get it now? Is that still a thing you're having to do, or since you seem to be doing very well, you're on this kind of curve and things like that. So what is the educational element of it?
So I don't think we need to educate the market about the cloud. I think that is established. But this new perspective on security is definitely something we need to educate. We're generally there's sort of two primary challenges. One is most companies are not in the cloud or not in the cloud, or they're not using DevOps or not using DevOps. They're somewhere in the middle. And so when you talk about a security offering, and it depends, this might vary from solution to solution, security people do need a certain breadth to be able to kind of cover their scope of applications. So while I like to say that companies buy Snyk for the future, but then we support the past. We need to cover a breadth of your stack to do it. And so the first conversation we need to have with customers is really about saying, okay, if we want to partner here, you don't want to swap your sort of security solutions in a year's time, in 2 years' time. You're trying to go long. Then think about not just what you need today, but also what you're going to need tomorrow, and which is the right sort of partner for you to work with. So it's an educational element, because sometimes sometimes the majority of their stack is still not in this new world. It's going there, but it's not. And then the second view is indeed, and I think that has really turned a corner in the last sort of 6 to 9 months, is indeed this the definition of a category. So the application security category today is smaller and is defined in a different way that focuses on applications in that sort of IT era, of having applications be a small part of the full stack and not the cloud native application security space. And so both the developer first approach, from an investor perspective, the developer first approach, they understand this, so see it longer term. From a customer perspective, sometimes they need to rejig their budget planning, their sort of structuring to say, okay, I understand this. And sometimes even the thinking. So we talk about container security, and we say, well, containers are not an evolution of your virtual machine, that you have in your IT stack. They're an evolution of the app that now also includes operating systems. That education does need to happen. So this has gotten a bit easier. I think that's really what happens from a momentum perspective is when the market starts getting it, and when you're coming along and you ask a chief security officer how do they prioritize their security and what's most important to them, and what they tell you is basically what I just said, right? In so many words.
So interesting. So we've seen, obviously, in the current crisis, we've seen a lot of stuff move online very, very quickly. That's must have presented a huge opportunity for Snyk. But has it, because people have had to go so quickly, have they chosen to kind of skip security, right? Or perhaps just not put a bigger emphasis on it, because security has always, I've been in this business over 20 years, has always been the thing that has delayed projects as opposed to actually accelerate them, right? So at what point, what have you seen in the last few months of when people have been moving things online? Have you seen, more interest in your technology because it's simpler to deploy, or because it's the way things get done these days? What are you seeing?
Yeah, the sort of the tailwinds of cloud adoption have definitely accelerated our Snyk's adoption and relevance. We actually don't see organizations as an org don't really skip security. I think, DevOps has graduated from being a hobby and being on sort of some side applications to companies looking to capitalize on the business advantage that DevOps and continuous deployment and cloud offer in their primary businesses. And within those businesses, security is a necessity. It's really something that cannot be skipped. And so because this is a digital transformation, because this is a transformation and a big change in how many things are being done in the business, it's actually an opportunity to have a conversation about, okay, you also need to rethink, you need to transform how you do security in that process. And there's sort of these two perspectives. I like to say that there's companies that are veterans to modern development and new to security, and there's companies that are veterans in security and new to modern development, but both of them are sort of pointing to the same destination, in which they're looking for a modern way to sort of secure the sort of modern dev surrounding they have. So we see Snyk's opportunity, or like the value proposition we would bring to companies, transforming, is that we accelerate their journey to the cloud. We allow them, because security is needed, and we allow them to actually capitalize on it, because otherwise security is oftentimes, they still go to the cloud, they still embrace DevOps, but in practice security is slowing it down. It's not letting you capitalize on it unless you embrace these new methodologies. And they will say that Snyk is an enabler. It's a key part of that journey. But we're also helping. We invest a lot in the community and in education. We run DevSecCon, which is a conference that is really all about collaborations. I run a podcast called The Security Developer. All of them are around sharing practices and helping the companies go through this journey as a practice, as a transformation. And Snyk is a piece of it. It's not the entirety. They do need to make some transformations internally as well.
I think the things that you're doing around community and podcasting and like focus on the developer to sort of get that mind share and that traction, that's kind of the modern way of doing stuff, isn't it? It feels like you've got so many sort of channels that you can embrace the community for best practice, thought leadership, that kind of stuff. But that only goes so far, right? So the idea that you need to build a technology partnership, across cloud platforms or across technology providers is such an important thing, I think, anyway. And so, to what extent have you embraced the partnerships? I mean, you are a partner of AWS, and we do some great things with you guys. So, what's the sort of notion around that? What's the sort of the strategy you've had around sort of your go-to-market through technology partnerships?
Yeah, so I think when you make a big change in the market, you can't do it alone. I think it's almost silly to sort of think that you can. We're looking at a transformational change in how the world secures software. Both of them are critical. Both kind of the growth of software and its security are critical to the world, and that's a massive scope. And so I believe there are sort of two tiers of partnership that are very important. At the top are the users, are the customers. And, we invest in the community because really, I think at the core, it's about providing value to customers. It's about providing value to the community and helping kind of shepherd or sort of, lead the world through this change in how security is done and how to bring security into the sort of DevOps and cloud era. And then right alongside it or a part of that ecosystem are all the partners that are doing amazing things, right? And a developer doesn't set out to just sort of build secure software. They're setting out to build a business value proposition to their own customers, and that is being done through all those partners. So I think AWS is a great example of companies building and capitalizing on it. And our job in this journey is to work with AWS to help customers indeed accelerate their journey into the cloud and unlock the value that AWS has. And similarly, there's a set of these partners that help develop software, that help operate software, that help bring that software to customers and solve their problems. And we're excited and invest a ton in ensuring that we help everybody, get to that sort of win-win situation. And I think that's core to delivering the customer value and core to Snyk's success as a result.
Excellent. Well, I think I'd love to continue the conversation, but I've been strongly informed that we've run out of time, which is so we've only got 20 minutes on each talk today. So Guy, many thanks for agreeing to come on this. I think it's been super insightful for the audience to hear about your journey, and obviously the sort of the insights into the market and to go to market. It's been very interesting indeed. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll pass it back over to Alex, who's obviously going to introduce the next one. So thank you.
Thanks, Jonno.